Will the LA Kings be looking to add an elite player through a major trade? We'll tell you who and how it could happen, plus a Mitch Marner update and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also co-host of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show wrapping up the night in the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Coming up with today's show, we've got a Mitch Marner update, plus the Kings sign a goalie, and at least two LA Kings will be heading to the Olympics next year. But we start with the Kings maybe looking to upgrade their roster, not necessarily through free agency, but a big-time trade. Now, from time to time over the past couple of seasons, we've had some Kings fans ask about the possibility of the Kings getting former SoCal resident Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars. And I'll admit, I've been a bit dismissive of those suggestions because Jason Robertson is a really, really good young player. And why in the world would the Dallas Stars want to part with him? Well, apparently the Dallas Stars, who are current Cup contenders, gone to the Western Conference Finals several years in a row. Unfortunately for them, not making it to the finals. But they've made some moves and now are in a bit of a situation. They went out and landed Mikko Rantanen at the trade deadline this past season. They locked him up to a big long-term deal. And now there is some serious talk about the Stars looking to move Jason Robertson. Now, why would they want to do that? Well, they don't want to do it, but why would they have to do that or feel like they feel compelled to do that? They've got a very talented roster, and I mentioned Mikko Rantanen. He gets an 8-year deal. He's making $12 million per season, and now the Dallas Stars have some pretty hard salary cap decisions that they're going to have to make. They've got 7 unrestricted free agents this offseason. Now, Jason Robertson just wrapped up his 5th NHL season, all with the Dallas Stars. They drafted him in the second round, 39th overall, back in 2017. And what was considered a down year for him this past season, he put up 80 points, which would have been the leading scorer on the Kings this season, to go along with 35 goals, which would have tied Adrian Kempe for the team lead for the Kings this season. Again, that was considered an off season for him. In the 2021-22 season, he had 41 goals and 79 points. The next season, he had 46 goals and 109 points. He finished 4th in the Hart Trophy voting. So this is a guy, when he's on his game, can be among the best players in the NHL. And he's also just approaching his prime. He's 25 years old. He's 6'3", 210 pounds. He's got good size. Gifted goal scorer. Great shot. Not afraid to go to the net. Has good touch around the net. Not a big physical player necessarily, but he knows how to use his size to his advantage. And he's decent enough on defense. He's a very, very gifted player. Now, maybe not necessarily a perfect fit for the Kings. They're looking for a right shot right winger. Robertson's a left shot left winger, but he is talented enough that he's a guy that any team would want, and you find a place to fit him in if you can get a guy like Jason Robertson. Now, there is a nice connection between Robertson, his family, and the Kings. Jason Robertson was born in Arcadia. I believe he was at one point a part of the Junior Kings program. I do know his parents were former Kings season ticket holders, but his family did eventually move to Michigan when he was 10 in a direct effort to increase his chances of being a professional hockey player. And but there is that SoCal connection, so that there's something there that might lure him back to LA. Maybe could play a small factor. A nice story. While going after Robertson, if the reports that the Stars would consider moving him, it seems like a no-brainer. Of course, the question is, what would the Kings have to give up to get him? And what would they have to sign him? Would they be able to sign him long-term because of his contract situation that's coming up? So also the question is, what would the Kings be able to give up to the Dallas Stars in relation to what other teams are willing to give up? Could the Kings give up what it's going to take as opposed to some other teams who are probably in a different situation than the Kings? As for Jason Robertson, he is a restricted free agent after this season, but he is arbitration eligible. That means that he's still under team control. But if he and the team don't agree on what the team is offering, he could make a counter offer. An arbitrator would then hear both sides of the argument, and then he would decide what the contract would be going forward. Now, Robertson's an unrestricted free agent after that following season, and he's currently making $7.75 million. Now, he doesn't have any kind of a no trade clause or a no movement clause, so the Stars could deal him to any team if they so choose. Stars general manager Jim Nill was asked about the ability to keep Robertson after this season, and he said, quote, "He's a good player. That's somebody where we'll see where the signs go. How do you fit him in the cap? Those are decisions we have to make moving forward here." End quote. So that is not exactly a denial that the Dallas Stars could be looking to move Jason Robertson. Now, again, if they want to move him, again, not that they want to move him, they don't, but business is business and you can't pay everyone. So certainly if the price is right, it appears that the Stars are at least willing to listen. And if they get the right price, it sounds like they're willing to consider moving a really good player. So again, what would the Stars be looking for in return? And what's on the Kings roster that could possibly make this happen? Well, the players that likely would be available, Trevor Moore's name has come up a lot. He's making just $4.2 million, and he was a 30-goal scorer 2 seasons ago. Jordan Spence is a young right shot defenseman that could be an attractive piece. He's making only $1.5 million for next season. Maybe even an Alex Ferrier could be an interesting younger type prospect the Stars could see has an upside and could help them. He's a restricted free agent right now, so the Kings would have to sign him and then trade him. So are any of those players alone enough to get a Jason Robertson? Probably not. The Kings do have a first-round pick this year in the draft. Would they be willing to offer that? I would think so. Do the Stars want that? Maybe. If it's a package of a player that can help now and a first-round pick, possibly. As far as prospects for the Kings, right now the prospect pool is pretty thin for the Kings. You've got Liam Greentree, you've got Carter George, you've got Hampus Lakinski. Other than that, I don't know that there's much there that's really attractive. And because the Kings are so thin right now in their prospect pool, I don't know if they can afford to get rid of any of those guys. So is what the LA Kings, is the package that they could offer better than some teams that are in rebuild mode, that are willing to give up maybe multiple picks, or maybe they've got a veteran guy that's not going to really help them right now, but could help the Dallas Stars, and he comes at a more reasonable price? I would think that there are probably teams out there that could offer a little bit more towards what the Stars are looking for than the Kings can. The Stars are not looking for first-round picks or prospects necessarily. They would want as well somebody that can help them now, because their window for winning a Stanley Cup appears to be wide open in the moment. So again, other teams that are rebuilding, more desperate, willing to give up prospects and players mostly, I think could probably offer a bit more than what the Kings could. But it's still an interesting situation to monitor. It's kind of hard to believe the Stars would want to, again, they don't want to, but could look at trading a young, talented player like Jason Robertson. But there's only so much money to go around. They went out and got Mikko Rantanen in their big deal. They've got some other players that are really good players on the rise, like defenseman Thomas Harley. They got to sign him too. So there's only so much money that can go around. And apparently Jason Robertson could be the odd man out for the Dallas Stars. But again, he could also fetch a pretty nice price in return. So we'll see. It's definitely worth mentioning and keeping an eye on. He would be certainly, when you talk about Mitch Marner, Jason Robertson, I would rather have Jason Robertson than a Mitch Marner. They're both really good. They both could help a team. I think Robertson's a bit more of an elite goal scorer for sure. You could say Marner is more of a playmaker, but they'll each end up with 90 points at the end of the season if things are going right for them. So anyway, Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars, an interesting name to keep in mind as a possible player that could be acquired via trade this offseason. Speaking of Mitch Marner, we've got a Mitch Marner update. That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Well, the NHL draft, we expect to be in Los Angeles, is coming up in 11 days, and we're just 15 days away from the start of free agency, noon Eastern time on July 1st. So some big things are coming up here on the NHL schedule. Of course, Stanley Cup Finals will be wrapped up no later than on Friday, maybe as soon as tomorrow. We shall see on Tuesday. And I have to admit, for the first time in a long time as a Kings fan, I'm actually excited about the start of free agency. Now, if you've watched this show, I hope you feel like I'm a glass is half full kind of guy. I like to think of myself as having a positive attitude when it comes to things in general. And even though we've detailed on this show recently the Kings' abysmal track record when it comes to signing free agents in their history, as I like to say from time to time, the past tells you what has happened, not what will happen. And I'm somewhat stealing that from an old great sportscaster named Dick Stockton. But this season in particular, I think we can all at least be very, very curious to see what new GM Ken Holland does or doesn't do. Now, the real question mark for me, and at least going into free agency, I'm interested to see what he's going to do. Now, when Rob Blake was still in charge of the team, felt like I had a pretty good grasp on what he was going to do. Not much. Although, we do have to give him his credit for the moves he made last season in free agency, going out and get Warren Fogle. That was a great get. Joel Edmondson worked out well. Tanner Jeannot did pretty good as well. Those were nice additions. Nothing earth-shattering to be sure, but they all worked out well. So we'll see. Now we saw heard both at the introductory press conference for Ken Holland, he talked about tweaks. He talked about how good this team was. He mentioned how many points they had last year. He was very complimentary of the team and the coach. And maybe that was lip service in his first time meeting with the media as the Kings GM. Want to be positive. But that message seemed to say that he's looking to re-sign guys and make some minor additions. However, Ken Holland wasn't brought back wasn't hired. He didn't come back to hockey for a rebuild. He's looking at one more shot at the cup before he's done. He's had Stanley Cup winning teams in Detroit. That was a while ago. He came close with the Oilers 2 years ago, and he's looking to get one more name on the cup for him before he signs off. And by all accounts, he's agreed on a short-term deal with the Kings. 2 years, maybe there's an option for a third, but certainly nothing more than that. So the clock's ticking on him to make moves now. And if you're him and you're coming back and you're going into a situation like this, it's hard for me to believe that he wouldn't be intrigued to do something major. And Mitch Marner is obviously the big name out there. And there continue to be reports that Marner is interested in the LA Kings. And I would have to believe that if you're a new GM taking a new job, and Ken Holland talked about it in his introductory press conference. He knows the realities of being in a market like Los Angeles, the entertainment capital of the world. You've got the Dodgers, you've got the Lakers. They make big swings. They sign big time free agents. They make big time trades. If you're going to compete with those teams for fans and attention, you got to do those types of things too on occasion. So there would be no bigger splash than Ken Holland getting Mitch Marner. It would absolutely get the LA Kings a ton of headlines. It would probably even get them at least a mention or two in a lot of places in LA where they wouldn't be mentioned, like local sports talk radio, the local TV news, that kind of thing. Certainly it would be big news for the LA Kings hockey community. Even if you're not sold on Mitch Marner, it would be a big deal. So I am genuinely curious to see, and maybe even a bit excited for free agency on July 1st. And I don't know that I could say that a lot over the last few years when it came to the LA Kings. Now, I mentioned there's a Mitch Marner update. A report came out, I think it was on Friday, that claims that Mitch Marner, again, the biggest free agent available this offseason, will in fact go to market. He is apparently not returning to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Not that that's a huge surprise. And I don't know exactly if it was the Leafs saying, we're not paying that much for you, or if he said, I need a change of scenery, or both. There was always a possibility, though, that Marner could return to Toronto. He's from there. He's never played for any other team. He's always talked glowingly about wanting to be a Maple Leaf, but he understands. And I think the team feels like they need a change as well with the disappointments they've had in the postseason. That, look, this is time for him to cash in, and he may never be in this situation again. Now, there's also a report that he might not be looking for a 7-year deal or even an 8-year deal if Toronto traded his rights to somebody, that he might be looking for just a 4-year deal and then try and cash in again in 4 years. I would be surprised if that happens, because you never know what could happen in 4 years. Maybe he blows out his knee, right? If that money is there long-term, I think you take it. But I would be actually more interested in Mitch Marner if it was a shorter-term deal, to see, okay, what does this guy have out of that Toronto spotlight, out on his own, where he can, have less pressure on him and see how he performs. I'm really curious to see what he can do kind of away from the Maple Leafs. My guess is he's probably about the same player he is in Toronto, to be honest, but I don't know that. And if it's a shorter term deal, I might be more actually attracted to him, because I won't be tied to him long term. If it doesn't work out in 4 years, we can part ways. Certainly he would be motivated to play well for 4 years so that he could cash in again. Now, I know there's plenty of fans who listen and watch this show who have a variety of opinions on Mitch Marner. Some love the idea of him coming to LA. Some do not think that he is the guy. And even for me, I've admitted I'm pretty much split on it as well. I want the Kings to be in on the top free agents every year. I want that. I think they should be in that discussion. They should be a major destination for big time free agents. So that's why I would love to see the Kings in on Mitch Marner. But I'm not sold that Marner is the guy to put the LA Kings over the top. And I think a lot of fans would expect him to be that guy. I don't think he is. Is he very good? Yes. 90, 100-point player. Those guys don't become available very often. So you've got to be interested in him at least. But, would he help the Kings be better? Sure. But is he the best free agent available as far as a fit for the Kings? Well, actually, yeah, he's a right shot, right winger. And he's even a really solid defensive player, which goes with the Kings' identity. So what's the problem? The problem is the price tag. If you're going to pay a guy $13, $14, $15 million a year, that guy needs to be the guy that gets you to the cup. And Mitch Marner has not proven to be that guy. And he's had 70 career playoff games to try and prove it, and he hasn't. Now, the points are not bad, and he's more of a playmaker than a goal scorer, but he's got 13 playoff goals in 70 career playoff games. Sam Bennett has 15 this postseason. So that kind of tells you all you need to know about what impact Mitch Marner makes when it comes to the biggest games of the year. So there's that. That's just a fact. So there is one other element, though, to this. Reports are, and I happen to believe that this is 100% true, that the Vegas Golden Knights are very interested in Mitch Marner. And the reports are that the two Western Conference teams that could be the front runners for Marner are the Kings and the Vegas Golden Knights. Of course, which team is willing to meet his price is obviously going to be probably the team that wins out. But if I were a betting man, which I'm not, my money would be on Vegas to sign Marner. It just makes a ton of sense. I think Vegas would completely embrace him. It would be a big story. When Jack Eichel went to Vegas, it was a big deal. And he was a guy that got a lot of grief in Buffalo. He goes to Vegas and turns into a really, really good player. He got MVP votes this year, as a matter of fact. The second overall pick behind McDavid for the Buffalo Sabres. He didn't leave there on good terms, goes to Vegas, completely is embraced, wins a cup there, and it's everything he wanted it. I could see Mitch Marner looking at Jack Eichel and saying, I'm kind of like that guy. I want to go there, be a part of that team. And it makes a ton of sense. Plus, Vegas is a team that is not afraid to be super aggressive and make things happen. So I really think that Vegas is the team out west that will likely get Mitch Marner. Of course, no state income tax in Nevada doesn't hurt as well. And that would be tough as an LA Kings fan, because Mitch Marner not only does not pick LA, but chooses a division rival that we may have to go through to get where we want to go. So we'll see. But again, Marner definitely, according to reports, definitely not going back to Toronto. He is going to be available, and the Kings continue to be a team that is mentioned when it comes to Mitch Marner. So again, free agency could be very, very interesting this year for us as LA Kings fans. Looking forward to it. I really am excited about it. All right, the LA Kings sign a goalie, and at least two Kings are going to be representing their countries on the biggest stage. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, just a quick note. I'm going to be doing something to provide you, Kings fans, with some extra coverage of the team away from the podcast and the YouTube show. I can't go into details about it here, but if you have emailed the show before, I'm going to be sending you an email about this. And if you are interested in some extra coverage of the Kings, also interested in supporting me, if you want to know more about it, you can send me an email, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, for more information on some extra Kings coverage for some special friends of the show. All right. LA Kings new GM Ken Holland made a signing. He inked 33-year-old veteran goalie Phoenix Copley to a one-year deal worth $775,000, which I believe is the league minimum. It's a one-way deal. That means that Copley gets that money regardless of if he plays in the AHL or the NHL next season. Now, next season will be Copley's fourth in the Kings organization. In the 2021-22 season, he burst onto the scene due to injury, ended up starting 37 games for the Kings, finished with an impressive 24-6-3 record, a 2.64 goals against average, and a .903 save percentage. It was the most starts and wins for the former Capitals backup that he ever had in his career. The next season saw him play in just 8 games for the Kings, 4-1-2 record. Last season, he was the veteran backup to Eric Portillo in the AHL with the Ontario Reign, but he ended up playing a career-high 42 games. He had a record of 24-17-1 because of some injuries and issues with Eric Portillo. And Phoenix Copley was coming off knee surgery, you might remember, going into last season. Certainly showed that the knee is okay and that he can play in a number of games if he needs to. Last year, he had a 2.49 goals against average and .904 save percentage with the Ontario Reign. Now, in Copley, the Kings have signed a veteran backup to Eric Portillo in the AHL next season, just as he was this past season. Now, it's also possible that Phoenix Copley could be the number 2 in LA. He could be the backup to Darcy Kemper next season if they can't find a better replacement for David Riddick, who looks like he's on his way out. We'll see. like Copley was. David Riddick is an unrestricted free agent, and he didn't have a great year last year. So the Kings probably are looking to upgrade, but at the same time, there isn't much out there to go get in free agency. So maybe Copley's the guy. Now Copley could be, again, the backup to Portillo. Maybe Portillo's the backup to Kemper, and Copley's the number one goalie with the Ontario Reign. Not sure what Eric Portillo's status is coming off a back injury, and Copley could be the number one goalie for the Reign and would be the, in case of emergency, goaltender for the LA Kings if something happened to whoever their backup was, whether it's Portillo or somebody else, or if something happens to Darcy Kemper. So regardless of what his role is going to be, veteran backup Phoenix Copley, still in the plans for the LA Kings for at least one more season, playing in some sort of a role. I would say at the high end, he could be the backup for the Kings. At the low end, he could be the backup for the Ontario Reign, but we'll see. He's a decent enough number two goalie at the AHL level, or at the NHL level, I should say, and certainly depth in the organization at that position. The Winter Olympics are coming up this season, and the NHL is participating for the first time in the Winter Games since 2014 in Sochi, Russia. A couple LA Kings look like they're going to be part of the Olympics this season in Italy, as forwards Adrian Kempe and Kevin Fiala were each named to their country's preliminary Olympic rosters for Sweden and Switzerland. Not a surprise for either, actually. Kempe has represented Sweden in several international events, including the Four Nations face-off this past season, where he played very well. Fiala has played for Team Switzerland in many events, including the last 3 World Championships. I think he was the MVP 2 years ago. And although, he did play, I should say, for Canada in the Four Nations face-off, I wouldn't expect Drew Doughty to be on Team Canada's Olympic roster this time around. Remember, he only got in the Four Nations because of an injury. He could be in the discussion again, like he was this year, as kind of being an extra defenseman, and maybe if there's another injury, I don't know. I will be surprised if Drew Doughty is on the Canadian Olympic team for this coming season. And I can't see anyone else other than Kempe and Fiala being in the Olympics. I think Vladislav Gavrikov would be on Team Russia if they were allowed to participate, but that is not the case. Russia is barred from participating in the Olympics because of the war with Ukraine. So still a great honor for Adrian Kempe and Kevin Fiala, and will be very cool to see them participate in the Olympics. Obviously, fingers crossed that they can stay healthy and come back for the stretch run for the Kings and for the postseason. I did mention earlier that the NHL draft is scheduled for Los Angeles, and again, it's just 11 days away as we are recording the show. The NHL has scheduled the draft to be held on June 27th and June 28th. While team representatives will not be attending because it's a decentralized draft, there will be a lot of the prospects as well as media and fans scheduled to travel to LA for the event. But with what has been going on in downtown LA, league officials have had to make some contingency plans. According to the Daily Faceoff's Frank Cervelli, the NHL is closely monitoring the situation with the protests going on in Los Angeles that have made international news. The Peacock Theater and LA Live are both within the curfew boundary, which currently restricts activity and movement from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The draft is currently scheduled to begin at 7 p.m. LA time. And while it seems like things are dying down, probably because of the curfew, if things spark up again, it's possible the event could be postponed. It could be held in a virtual format only, or it could be moved to another location. So no final decision has been made yet. Hopefully, though, the NHL draft will be able to go on as scheduled in Los Angeles in 11 days from now. And hopefully I will be out there covering that event as well. All right, that'll do it for today's show. For you everydayers, those who listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day. Coming up this week, we'll continue to look at off-season targets for the LA Kings and free agency and trades. We will certainly look back at Kings players from this past year, talk about how they did last year and what's to come for them in the coming season. We'll also continue to count down to the NHL draft, talk about some draft targets as well, and we'll be joined by a special guest at some point this week. All that and more coming up this week on Locked On LA Kings. If you want to stay connected to the show, You can email the show, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. If you want some information on some extra Kings coverage, you can do that as well. Always welcome to post your thoughts on each show. If you're watching on YouTube in the comment section, we would love for you to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.